Who doesn't love Squigs, the fungal little moored beasts pioneered as a concept by Games Workshop? Over the years, I kept an eye out for anyone who creates anything that looks vaguely squiggly, and these caught my eye by Kromlech Games, a Polish company that does some fantastic little bits of resin, fantasy and sci-fi miniatures. Now, squigs are very versatile little creatures in wargaming terms because you can use them from a range of the miniature agnostic rule sets. I'm going to use some for Dragon Rampant and for Saga Age of Magic, and of course Age of Sigmar. My plan for enormous comedy effect is to paint a few of these up as more beasts, which you can use in Deadzone. My opponent won't expect in a game like Kill Team, effectively the Mantic Games equivalent of Kill Team, with his basically Imperial Guard, to suddenly have a load of squigs running up and biting him. Look at that movement, 2 to 3, a human is 1 to 2, and fight 4+. You get to roll 3 dice, I believe, and they're d8s, so you've got a 50-50 chance on 3 d8s of causing a hit, and a normal person fights at 5+, and my opponent's just not going to expect that. But he'll be good humored about it, I'm sure. They come all nicely boxed up. Hello, Mr. One-Eyed Beast. I just found something innately funky about these guys, and thus the background music. But basically, you can see this is them on their 30mm bases, because they are quite big guys. Not undercoated or anything. This is the raw resin and based. Then I undercoated them in Halford's white primer, which is designed for cars, and so it really adheres well to any kind of resin and removes the problem of the one I find, which is if you paint, if you just undercoated them in a kind of Games Workshop or an army painter paint, inevitably of some resins, no matter how much you've washed the resin miniature, it seems to flake off eventually. So this causes me no issues. I don't use contrast paints very much at all, but I thought this was a clear-cut case for using contrast Flesh Tearers red, because I didn't want to spend too much time on these, and you'll see why later when you see how many other squigs I have. And I'll be interested in opinions on how this has worked out. As you can see, I didn't go wild on the dry brushing of the skin. I didn't, highlight each of the different folds. I thought, look, there's a lot of these guys. Overall, we need to keep this simple, and so I just mixed in. I just took some Mechrite red, which is a darkish Games Workshop red, and mixed in a bit of Mephiston red, which is a bit of a yellowish red, and Jokera orange. Gradually, I think it was 2 or 3 layers, making it slightly more yellowish, and just dry brushing over the many fun folds. It was a lot of fun. And the next step was I just used some of this old flesh colour that's been floating around, added a little bit of brown to it, then add more of the flesh colour in white for all the bony, toothy bits. Painting teeth is a lot of fun, particularly on this guy, who looks like kind of Barney the dinosaur or something like that. And then I just added a little tip of white onto every sharpened point, and then put a bit of Army Painter soft tone on it, the water-based one in the bottle rather than the smelly methylated spirits one. For me, it was quite a big decision to give these guys pink lips. I think it makes them look a bit more cartoonish, but also a bit more realistic. Ha ha ha. But the thing is, it was a big decision because, as you'll see in a moment, there are quite a few of these guys overall, and if everyone has a pink lip, you've added an extra work stream to your little task. But it's not a problem. It wasn't that bad. The eyes, yellow. And then they looked a bit goofy and cartoonish, even more goofy and cartoonish when I did the black eyeballs. And I remembered seeing online some tip how you do eyeballs, pupils, etc. for bigger things like giants, which is you do one circle of the eye color that you want, say brown, then you do a black dot in the middle, and then you do a white dot where the light might glint off. And I think actually it makes these guys look slightly less goofy. I didn't bother doing the eye color because, you know, I wasn't going to do all of that for each of these guys' eyeballs. But so on top of the black snake-like pupil, I just put a tiny white dot, which I think helps. And now they look like kind of a proper herd. In terms of scale, the all-important question of scale. Whoops, well that's a Games Workshop, slightly heroic scale human. So these are big. They look like kind of cows of the savannah, giant squigs of the savannah. And for the all-important question of how these interact with other squigs, here are some we'll be preparing later, except I think what I'll do is I'll spray paint these white, because these were spray painted a long time ago, and I think it's better to use the GW contrast paint, and you'll see how big they are compared to normal squigs. So these are definitely your squig ancients in the herd. But, you know, nothing wrong with that. Some squigs are just bigger in the mushroom growing world that is the gloomspite gits. Great consideration has been given to their biology. You know, if they've got these huge toothed mouths constantly eating, it's got to come out somewhere. Although I do wonder what biological evolution led to him having a giant tooth on one side of his mouth versus the other side. Also, to be entirely candid, I know at the beginning I said that, you know, I just kept the dry brushing sort of simple with only a few kind of layers, which was true. But then when I looked at them in the daylight and after doing some of this video, I thought they could do with a little bit more highlighting just to make the faces pop, but at the same time finding that right balance between just keeping going and going and going with your miniature ad infinitum versus finding that happy medium. And so I did just get one of the brighter yellows, mix it in with some Mephiston red, and then just do 2 or 3 very simple kind of highlights for the things that are really you know, sticking out on the faces, just to give them that little bit extra pop. Not to ungraciously suggest that these pop, but, you know, I think they did need that little bit extra kind of glow. The other thing I wanted to just put out there, asking, is could I use these gnaws, squigs basically, for this game Rain and Hell by Adam Loper and Vince Venturella, which I've heard a lot about, but sounds like a kind of Mordheim set in hell, where you can use any kind of demonic miniatures you want. And though there are clear connections between these Kromlech gnaws and squigs, I don't see why these couldn't just be some kind of lesser spawns of Satan, you know, assisting larger, more standard demons. Thanks for watching the journey of these giant squiggly beastie chompers all the way to the end. Please do like if you enjoyed this. Comment if you have any other thoughts on better ways of painting them, other, you know, tips on finding that sweet spot between going for it versus, you know, shorter cuts. And please do subscribe, and you can see me paint the other 24 squigs I've got and see the herd at war in the various games that I play. And maybe I'll do a video to see the response of my opponent next week when I play Deadzone and he sees 6 of the little chompers turn up. Does he just gun them down from afar, or do they just munch Colonial Marine face? See you soon.